The day my billionaire husband died, strangers on the internet were calling me a gold digger, a con artist, a nurse who played her cards right. And the funny thing is, I kind of get why it looked that way from the outside. I mean, I married a man almost 3 times my age, a man I barely knew, and when he died, I ended up with a mansion, a coastal house, and millions of dollars. But if you only look at the ending, you miss the part where I was standing in a hospital billing office being told my mother would die because I was poor, you know what I mean. It started with those fluorescent lights that make everybody look sick, even the healthy people. I was still in my blue scrubs from a double shift, hair shoved into a bun that had given up 3 hours earlier, watching the woman behind the glass click her keyboard like she wasn't telling me anything life-ruining. "I'm sorry, Miss Rodriguez, but without payment, we cannot continue your mother's chemotherapy. The balance is now $68,000. She said it like she was reading the weather. I had $300 and some change in my checking account. My mom, Patricia, had stage 4 cancer, and maybe 3 months without treatment, maybe 2 years with it, if we were lucky. I begged for a payment plan, charity, anything, and she reminded me very calmly that I was already on a payment plan and had missed 3 payments. Policy is policy. I walked out of that office feeling like someone had quietly closed the last door in a burning building. I was working 3 jobs. My brother Ramon was barely staying afloat, sending us what he could. Our apartment in the Mission was 1 month from eviction, and every bank I'd begged had told me I wasn't worth the risk. That night, I sat by my mom's hospital bed, holding her hand while she slept, staring at the last chemo bag they'd give her for free, and I whispered, "I'll find a way, Mama, I promise," even though I had absolutely nothing left to bargain with. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I don't answer those, but grief and exhaustion make you reckless. "Is this Elena Rodriguez?" a man asked. Voice smooth, older, careful. "Yes. Who's this?" "My name is Leonard Kim. I'm an attorney. I have a proposition that might sound unusual, but I assure you it's legitimate. It could solve your financial difficulties completely. Can you meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. at 2401 Pacific Avenue?" Pacific Heights. Old money, real money houses you only see in magazines. I should have hung up. Instead, I heard myself say, "I'll be there." The mansion at that address looked like it had been grown in a lab, just for movies. White columns, perfect hedges, a view of the Golden Gate Bridge that made my chest hurt. I showed up in my one good red thrift store dress, suddenly very aware it cost $7. Leonard opened the door himself, Asian late 60s, kind eyes behind silver glasses, gray suit that probably cost more than my rent. He led me through marble hallways into a bright sitting room where an elderly man was waiting in a burgundy armchair. "Miss Rodriguez, this is Mr. Harrison Sterling," Leonard said, and my brain went very still for a second, because I knew that name. Sterling Industries. Real estate, tech investments, philanthropy, Forbes lists. The kind of man whose donations you see on hospital walls. In person, he looked both powerful and fragile. Tall, even sitting down, white hair, pale blue eyes, a navy suit hanging just slightly loose on his frame, hands that trembled when he reached for his glass. His voice was gentle when he said, "Please sit. Water, coffee, tea?" I picked water because that felt safest. He didn't waste time. "I'll be direct, Elena," he said. "I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer stage 4. 6 months, maybe a year if I'm fortunate. I've had a good life, but there are loose ends." He told me about his daughter Vanessa, 45, obsessed with his money, contesting his will, determined to drag his charities through court for years after he was gone. Then he explained the family trust clause. If he was married when he died, his spouse would have authority over the estate distribution, and any legal challenges would have to stand in line behind her decisions. "I'm proposing a contract marriage," he said, like he was asking if I wanted sugar in my coffee. "1 year or until my death, whichever comes first. In exchange, I'll pay all your mother's medical bills, clear your debts, pay you a salary of $20,000 a month, and when I die, you'll receive $5 million and this house. You'll work with Leonard to distribute my estate as I intended mostly to charity." I sat there feeling the room tilt, thinking this is where Netflix says, "Inspired by a true story," and everything goes off the rails. "Why me?" I asked. "You could pay someone less. You could hire an actress. You don't know me." He smiled, a real small smile that reached his tired eyes. "Leonard has been researching people in difficult situations who still act with integrity. You work 3 jobs, you've never missed a shift. You donate to the food bank every month even though you're barely covering your own groceries. You helped your neighbor Mrs. Chin every day until she died, even though there was nothing in it for you. I don't want someone who will pretend for money. I want someone who will be kind to a dying old man." Then Leonard slid a separate document across the table, and that was the first real twist of my story. "This is a trust for your mother's care," he said. "Mr. Sterling has already funded it. Her balance at the hospital is paid, and all future treatments will be covered regardless of your answer today." Read that again in your head. He had already saved my mother's life before I agreed to anything. So suddenly, it wasn't "marry me or your mother dies." It was, "I've already done the right thing, now I'm asking if you'll help me do one more." Every logical part of me screamed, "This is insane, you're going to end up chopped in a basement." But the part of me that had spent months watching my mother fade away felt something shift, like hope and disbelief took hands for a second. I thought about all the doors that had slammed in my face. Loan officers, landlords, that billing clerk behind the glass, and then this old man who could have ignored me chose not to. I said yes. I don't even remember the words coming out of my mouth, just the way his shoulders dropped in relief. The contract was 47 pages long, laid out on a polished dining table with sunlight catching the edges, Leonard walking me through. Legalese until my head spun. No expectations of intimacy, separate bedroom suites, confidentiality, marriage for 1 year or until death, appearances at social functions, monthly salary, clear terms about the estate. Then another set of papers about the trust for my mom, irrevocable, locked in, no matter what happened between me and him. I kept waiting to find the trap, but it was all written in my favor, and he even offered to pay for my own lawyer to review it. That night, I went home to our tiny apartment, and my mom was there, released from the hospital, with a portable pump humming beside her color, already back in her cheeks from the meds. Ramon was on the floor, staring at his laptop. "Lena, my loans are gone. Just gone. What did you do?" So I told them. About the billionaire with cancer, about the contract, about the marriage. My mom cried. Ramon looked at me like I'd stepped out of some superhero movie. My best friend Amber, who came over as soon as Ramon called her, listened with her arms crossed. "This sounds insane," she said finally. "But you've already said yes, so I'm not going to sit here and make you feel worse. Is he kind to you?" "Yeah," I said, surprising myself with how quickly it came out. "He's kind. Really kind." Amber nodded. "Then I'm with you. And I'm absolutely coming to that wedding to make sure he treats you right." 2 weeks later, we were at City Hall. It wasn't glamorous. My mom in her wheelchair, Ramon in a borrowed suit, Amber in a green dress, Leonard and Harrison's assistant, Julian, standing to the side. The ceremony took 8 minutes, standard vows, legal language about commitment spoken, knowing one of us was on a timer. When the judge pronounced us married, Harrison kissed my cheek and whispered, "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Sterling." And for the first time in a long time, I felt something that wasn't fear. Moving into the mansion was like stepping into another planet. My bedroom suite was bigger than our whole apartment. The first night I opened a drawer and found a handwritten note from Harrison. "Elena, thank you for giving an old man hope in his final months. Your kindness is a gift. This house has been quiet too long. Sleep well." I folded it and put it in my wallet like a talisman. And then the hurricane named Vanessa hit. You know the type. Designer suit, perfect hair face that probably cost as much as a small car heels that sound like an accusation. She arrived at 10 a.m. sharp, announced by the echo of her stilettos on marble. "Daddy, what is this about? I have a spa appointment at—" She saw me stopped dead. "Who is this?" Harrison straightened a little. "Vanessa, this is Elena, my wife." The silence was almost funny, if it hadn't been so painful. Her face went through shock, disgust, and fury in under 5 seconds. "You're what? This is a joke, right? You married some girl you've known for 2 weeks. She's young enough to be your granddaughter." "She's 26, he said calmly, "and kinder than you've ever been. Elena, this is my daughter Vanessa." I did what my mama raised me to do and offered my hand. "It's nice to meet you." She ignored it, looked me up and down like she was checking for price tags. "How much is he paying you? Be honest. We can cut a better deal." My cheeks burned, but before I could say anything, Harrison's voice went steel cold. "Vanessa, you will treat my wife with respect, or you will leave." She snapped that this was about the will, accused him of marrying me, to take her money, called me some girl, enough times that the words started to echo, and he said something I will never forget. "You've shown me for 45 years who you are. Yes, I trust a kind stranger over a selfish daughter. That is a reflection on you, not her." She left, promising to keep an eye on me to prove I was a con. I stood there shaking, thinking, what have I stepped into? The crazy part is how quickly this arrangement turned into something that didn't feel like an arrangement at all. We slipped into a rhythm. Breakfast together with sunlight pouring onto the kitchen table, him reading the paper while I enrolled in classes again, because he insisted I should finish my education degree. Afternoons where I'd go see my mom or help Ramon set up his art studio that Harrison paid for because he believed Ramon's work mattered. Evenings spent in his late wife Carolyn's library, where he told me stories about building his first company in the 70s and about losing his mother to cancer because they couldn't afford treatment. And I told him about growing up in the mission, about my dad leaving, about working since 16 to help my mom. He was lonely. That was the part no one saw. The articles talked about his money and his power, not the way he sat in that big house listening to the clock, because his wife was gone, and his daughter only came around to ask about money. Somewhere between us, burning toast together, and him teaching me chess, I stopped thinking of him as the billionaire and started thinking of him as Harrison. And then came the gala, and with it the reminder that the world wasn't just going to let me be happy in this weird little bubble. He said I needed to be introduced to his social circle, so Julian took me shopping for a red gown that made me look like I actually belonged in those rooms. Harrison lent me Caroline's pearl earrings. She'd rather they be worn, he said. The Legion of Honor Museum was packed with people whose names I'd only ever heard on the news, air kisses and champagne and networking everywhere. Harrison walked me around, introducing me as his wife. Some people were warm. Some were polite in that way that says I'm smiling, but I've already judged you. In the bathroom, I heard the rest. Two women at the mirrors, perfect makeup, perfect posture. Did you see Harrison's new wife? She's a child. Total gold digger. I heard she was a waitress or something, one said. The other laughed. He's dying. She'll be rich by Christmas. I stood in the stall, hands shaking, stomach twisting, wanting to burst out and shout the truth, wanting to disappear. Instead, I went back out, put on my "I'm fine" face, and Harrison saw right through it. What happened? He asked. Nothing, just people talking, I said. He took my hand, walked me to the center of the ballroom, and asked the band for a slower song. Dance with me, he said. Harrison, I don't know how. That's fine, I do. Just follow. We moved slowly, his hand gentle at my back, my head somewhere between his shoulder and his chest. Those people don't matter, he whispered. Their opinions are dust. What matters is that you made my last months better. I'm the lucky one here, not you. When the song ended, he did the wildest thing. He asked for the microphone and told a room full of rich people that before me, he'd been planning to die bitter and alone, and that I had given him peace, laughter, and someone to sit with him when the pain was bad. He said, if they were going to gossip, they should at least tell the story right, because he was the one who begged me to marry him, not the other way around. He kissed my hand, and for the first time that night, the applause felt like it was for me, not just for him. Here's the part that still feels like the real twist to me. Somewhere around then, our marriage stopped being about contracts and started being about love. Not the Hollywood kind with dramatic kisses in the rain, but the kind where you're sitting on the floor of his room at 3 a.m, rubbing his back, because the chemo has made him so sick he can't lift his head, and he still manages to crack a joke to make you laugh. The kind where he listens to you talk about wanting to teach third graders how to fall in love with reading, and he says, then you're going back to school now, not someday, and enrolls you himself. One night in the library, after I'd almost beaten him at chess for the first time, he looked at me very seriously and said, my feelings have changed. I care about you, Elena, not as a legal solution, but as you. I don't expect anything back. I know our situation is temporary, but I needed you to know. I sat there with my heart pounding, realizing what I hadn't wanted to say out loud, that I looked forward to 10 a.m. breakfast. More than anything, that I thought about him during the day, that the idea of walking back into my life without him hurt in a way money couldn't fix. I care about you too, I told him, voice shaking more than I planned to. And just like that, we weren't pretending anymore. It should have been simple from there, but grief and greed don't care about love. A distant cousin named Gerald showed up one afternoon waving private investigator reports and calling me every name you can imagine. He threatened to contest the will, leaked half-truths to the tabloids, and within days the internet had turned my life into a circus. Headlines about Billionaire's child bride, photos of me in my cheap old waitress uniform, people dissecting my bank statements and my body like they belonged to them. A hashtag accusing me of being a manipulative leech trended for a week. I cried in the bathroom trying not to let Harrison hear, but he did, of course he did. He was furious in that quiet way that shakes the room. He called Leonard, dictated a statement defending me as the most generous, selfless person he'd known, called Gerald a liar, and made it very clear he'd chosen me, not been tricked by me. Neighbors, co-workers, people I'd helped when I was broke, came forward to tell reporters stories of little kindnesses I'd barely remembered. Eventually, the tide of public opinion shifted. But the stress hit his body like a hammer. His liver started failing. The hospice bed rolled into the sunroom. The oxygen levels dropped. Dr. Thompson told me gently that we were talking days now, not months. That's when he asked for the garden wedding, the one I started with. We stood under an arch of roses in the yard, just family, and a few friends around us, and we said vows that weren't about contracts or money or legal clauses. He promised that his love for me in this short time was as real as anything he'd had in 30 years with Caroline. I promised to carry his legacy forward and use every dollar he left me to open doors for people like me, people like my mother. And he leaned in and said, "Nothing here is fake, Elena, and nothing will be canceled. Not this love, not the work you're going to do, not the future I see for you." He died a few weeks after that, early in the morning. The sky outside just turning pink, my head on his chest, my hand around his music playing softly in the background. His last gift to me was peace. There was no drama, no gasping last words, just a gentle letting go. The funeral was huge, full of people whose lives he'd quietly changed: scholarships. He'd funded employees he'd mentored, nonprofits he'd rescued. I stood up in front of all of them and told the truth that I'd married him because I was drowning, and I stayed because I loved him. At the will reading the next day, Leonard handed out gifts and bequests, $5 million, and the Napa property to Vanessa shares, and money to key employees, millions and millions to charities. And then to me, the house on Pacific Avenue, the little place on the coast he'd bought for Caroline, but never finished $5 million, and control over the distribution of almost $2 billion in foundation funds. Then came his letter. In it, he told me I'd given him the ending he'd prayed for, that I had good instincts, and should trust them, that I was not to spend my life defending our marriage to people who didn't matter, that I was to finish my degree and teach and fall in love again someday. And most importantly, that every act of kindness I did would be his way of staying alive in the world. So now when people ask me if I regret saying yes, I think about the woman who showed up at our foundation office with her baby on her hip and terror in her eyes because she couldn't afford the surgery he needed, and how I was able to sit her down, listen to her story, and say, "We've got this, your baby is going to get his surgery," because a dying billionaire decided one desperate nurse was worth trusting. I think about students like Destiny, the 17-year-old, who got a full ride because of the scholarship fund and told me she's going to be a doctor so she can help people the way someone helped her. I think about my mom, alive and laughing, and volunteering at the foundation. My brother painting huge canvases for our events, Vanessa working beside me, instead of against me, raising money and actually caring where it goes. I still miss him every day. There are nights at the coastal house when the ocean is loud and the sky is full of stars, and I swear I can hear his voice telling me I'm doing fine, that he knew I would. And yeah, sometimes I still see comments calling me a gold digger, or saying our marriage could never have been real because of our ages, and I could sit here and argue with them. But honestly, I don't need to. I was there at 3 a.m. with my hand on his back while he was throwing up from chemo. I was there when he finally told his daughter he was proud of her. I was there when he asked me to promise I would live loudly after he was gone. So let me ask you, and I really want to know your answer, if you were me back at that billing office, $300 in your account. Your mother's life on the line, and a dying man offered you a way out that turned into real love and real purpose along the way. What would you have done? Do you think I was wrong to say yes? Do you think he was wrong to ask? Is this love, or is this transaction? Or can it be both in a broken world where people fall through the cracks? Tell me in the comments what you think. Share your own stories, if you've ever been judged without people knowing the full truth, and if you believe kindness, even the messy, complicated kind, still matters. Hit like and share this, so more people hear what really happened between the gold digger and the dying billionaire.